Welcome to Dance Uncorked podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Jean, and today I am joined by world-renowned opera singer and past student, Teresa Perrotta. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you. I'm so excited to catch you because your career kind of puts you in different places at different times, and you're just kind of like bopping all over the country and the world sometimes. So I'm really happy that we found just a little bit of time to get in here and talk to each other. I haven't seen you or talked to you in so long. Thank God for social media that we
Right.
can stay connected and just like I can see what's going on in your life. You're about to get married. Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
amazing. I can't wait to talk to you about all the things that you're doing and all of your dance superpowers that have shown up for you, especially in your really cool career that you do. It's really unique and it's really special, and it takes a lot of talent to do what you do. So I'm very excited to talk to you about it. But before we get into that, let's talk about some wine.
Right.
And you picked out this wine. You picked out a French Bordeaux. That's the American way to say it, right? Bordeaux. But I believe when you actually get the translation, it's Bordeaux. Like there's a lot of I don't know how much French do
Portugal.
you know?
I studied it enough, but
Okay,
they will understand that there, so no
right.
worries.
So first and foremost, what people should know about French Bordeaux is that the wine that you actually bought, Teresa, I couldn't find a lot of information on like the origin of the vineyard and stuff like that, or the chateau where they make that wine. But it is in Bordeaux, which is a both a region of France and it's also a city. So that's what people should know first and foremost about a Bordeaux. It actually represents like a place in the world. Um, and it's a huge wine region. It's my God, there's like thousands of acres. And when we're talking about Bordeaux, we're talking about like old wine country. Like the Romans introduced like viticulture to this region in France. So it dates back a long time. A lot of these vineyards in this like region have seen wars. They've been through wars. Like it's insane how old some of these vineyards and these vines are in this particular region of France. Have you ever been to Bordeaux?
I haven't been to Bordeaux, no, but I
Okay.
have been. I've actually worked in France,
Oh,
so but
okay.
not there. Hopefully one day.
I know. I
I don't
have
know if they
no
have an
doubt.
opera
Yes,
house.
I have no doubt that you'll end up there somehow. So when we talk Bordeaux, we're talking old wine. It's old French wine. It's a classic thing. However, there are some UK connections. So the United Kingdom's connection here is that in the 12th century, I believe through history and through wars and trading and manufacturing and shipping, because of the way this region is kind of set both in between two rivers and also like snugged up to the Atlantic Ocean, like that side of France. So the UK had a lot of like traffic there, and at one point, like British people populated the Bordeaux region. So there's a huge like connection between Bordeaux, France, like French wine, and then like English culture and UK culture because of that historical, navigation through time and how people ended up where they ended up and like kind of the careers that they jumped into. Um, Bordeaux is typically a blend, and I believe yours, Teresa, is a blend of Cab and Merlot. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yes, it is.
Okay, cool.
75% Merlot and 25% Cab.
Ooh, yummy. I'm excited. Mine doesn't tell me what blend it is, but typically Bordeaux is always a blend. And when we say Bordeaux, we're typically also talking about a red wine. However, in Bordeaux, they make a lot of white wine as well. They make a lot of sweet white wines. So maybe if you've had a Muscat or Moscato, something along those lines. And then they do some sparkling and some rosés and stuff like that too. So it's not just like Bordeaux is only red. I think people mostly think that just because that is probably the most popular varietal that does come out of this region in France. And historically, like that's what's producing there. So we're talking about a red, we're talking about a blend, and you can just automatically assume that our Bordeaux red is going to be big and bold because of the varieties that we're talking about in there. It can be expensive. You can find some of the most expensive wine in Bordeaux, or Bordeaux's can be very expensive, but they can also be super affordable. So, for example, how much was your wine?
Mine is a little half bottle, but I think the
Oh,
full
cute.
bottle was maybe $20.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
mine was 14.99, and I got
okay,
it on sale for like $10 or something like that.
perfect. Yeah.
So perfect table. You can find it as like a table red. You can have, if you're having friends over, this is kind of like a cool red to introduce. If you're looking for something that, if you don't want to just serve Cab or just serve Merlot, because some people may not like just those varietals, this is a nice way to kind of open up the sphere of conversation and taste buds when your friends come over and be like, well, I have this blend of red wine that we could try instead of just one varietal. It has a lot of complex classifications, and a lot of it, you know, there's rules, and there's all this stuff that like a sommelier knows. I don't know. I don't know these things. If I ever study wine like a sommelier, maybe I'll know these things. But if you want to know about classifications of Bordeaux, you can do your own research on this, or you can ask a sommelier, good friendly sommelier at your local restaurant, or if you know anybody that's studying to be a sommelier. So there are classifications. I just wanted to note that because that you might see those things on the label, and there's meaning behind that. But we won't go into that here. We were just kind of exploring the basics of a Bordeaux. So thank you for choosing such a big red wine. And I busted out my big red glass. So you
Good.
did too.
Yeah, I did too.
Big reds deserve big glasses. Mostly
Amen.
like mostly because like I mean it's kind of like their costume. That's how I think of it. Like this is their costume. But it actually serves the wine better because it allows like more oxidation into this big bold red. So it'll allow it to open up even more so you can taste it a little bit better. You can smell it better. There's different glasses for different wines. So a big red deserves a big glass. That's kind of like my rule of thumb. So cheers to that. Let's taste
Cheers.
this and see what we've got here. Mm.
Mm, it's so good.
Oh, it's really smooth,
Yeah.
but it's acidic. Like there's like a tartness, acidity to it. I get like cherries, like I smell lots
Mhm.
of like cherry-like things, or berry. Like I would just do like cherries and berries. That's how we're going here. The color is really nice. This is a classic wine, easy drinking by itself. I think you could pair it with something really nicely. You could have this with just cheese and crackers and charcuterie, or you could have this like with a steak too. I think,
Absolutely.
or a burger. Like I love wine and burgers. Those are like my favorite things to
I
have
love that.
together. Surprisingly, like they're very, very good together. I'm gonna take one more sip. Hmm. Yeah, that's good. This is
Yeah.
also like as big as my head.
I
So
know, I was gonna say it looks so big. It's so
the
it's good
glass is
though.
massive. What's been blowing me away about this season is how intentional all of you are being about your wine selections. And
Yeah.
you had a story that went along with
Oh,
this
yes.
wine. So I want you to tell your story. We're going to take a backseat and then, yeah,
Okay.
let's tell your
Yeah, yeah,
story.
yeah. So, I was my first really big professional job, and I was actually going to sing at the Royal Opera House in Versailles. And I
Okay.
was singing a small role, and I was the understudy or the cover for the lead role, which the opera was called The Ghosts of Versailles by John Corleone, and I was singing the role or covering the role of Marie Antoinette.
Okay.
Um, and unfortunately, she was sick, and so I jumped in and I actually made my professional debut in this role in Marie Antoinette's
Oh
opera
my
house. Still
God.
feels kind of crazy to say that, but I'd walk past her bedroom into the theater, into the opera house that was built for her wedding. That was her wedding gift.
How did you even get through the performance? I would have just been
Oh,
like,
I cried all the time. I think I remember I kept track. I think it was like 7 or 8 times, walking on stage, leaving stage, walking up,
wow,
and
that's
just
amazing.
yeah, you work your whole life for these moments, and I was so lucky to have it so young and to just have it be there and in
Mhm.
that situation. And this was one of the first wines I had in France
Oh
when I got
my God.
there and had no idea what would come after. And truthfully,
Yeah.
that, jumping in for that performance has kind of jump started my career.
That's
Yeah, so
that's just such a great story. Like
yeah,
that's
it is. So I love my French wine. Well,
yeah, like that wine is so it means so much. It holds
yeah,
so much weight for you. Like the start of your career, but then also like where you did it and like
right,
how and the role that you were playing, like that all of it just like tied together. It was all meant to be, right?
right.
Oh,
Yeah, so when you asked for a wine, I was like, okay, I got to do something there. It's a
I
great
love
story, and I love
it.
the wine.
You all have been so intentional about your wine selection, which like I loved you guys anyway, but like that y'all are taking it up a notch for me. I'm like, you know what? These are my kids. Like
Right.
this is how they are. They've been intentional. And now that into their adulthood, like even small details like that, you all pay attention to. And I love that. So thank you for sharing that wine and that memory, like the memory that that wine holds is so significant and I mean amazing. What an amazing story. That that's
I
incredible.
know it
Like,
still doesn't feel real, but it did happen,
girl,
I promise. There's a
oh my
DVD and
gosh,
everything.
I love that. Well, so amazing. Well, we're gonna enjoy our French wine when we keep talking.
Yes.
Um, so Teresa, tell
Yes.
us about your dance history, and because we met when you were taking classes at Spotlight Dance Center in Orlando, Florida. You were an old
Right.
student of mine. I also taught your
Yes.
younger sister. Like the whole the Perrotta family was always
Yeah.
in the studio. Um,
Right.
and so tell us a little bit about like what got you started into dance, and then you guys were always also singing. Like I remember singing was always a part of your dance training. It went like side by side. And then at a point, obviously, it took off and that became the priority. So tell us a little bit about that transition too, and then we'll start talking about your dance superpowers in a second.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't really remember how I got started. I remember I took my first dance classes in kindergarten. So I started young. I think my mom wanted me to dance because
Yeah,
she was never able to.
they all do. They all want
Yeah,
to.
right.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I mean, I started out with, just ballet for most of the time, a little bit of tap when I was younger. And then I think you started teaching me. Gosh, I think I was maybe like 11. I mean, I was
Yeah.
young. I
Yeah.
was, I think, middle school and elementary school.
Yeah.
And I started doing more hip hop and all of that, which I just fell in love with. Um, and I was in choir and I did musicals at school. But dance was always a little bit more important to me
Mhm.
growing up. It's really what got me into the arts, especially I look back the classical arts and ballet and how that shaped how much I love classical music. And
Mm.
now that I'm an opera singer. Um, yeah, and then there was a point where I started training more seriously in classical music, and I had to make the choice of what I was going to do, and I knew dance would always somehow be a part of my life, and I
Mm.
would not be the performer today if I did not have that, gosh, 11, 12 years of
Yeah,
dance
you
training. I
danced for
mean,
a long time.
yeah, I mean, I danced longer than I've actually been singing opera, which is crazy because I've been doing that for what, 11 years. So I
Yeah.
think almost about to hit the mark of being at the
Okay.
same level of training. Um, yeah. And so
That's
I made that choice. And then I went to school. I got my undergraduate and master's and a postmaster's degree in opera. And luckily have been working in opera since.
yes. And I'm so proud of you. Like
Oh,
we're
thank
all
you.
so proud of you.
Oh, thanks.
We're all I'm just like I'm amazed when I look back at my students and just like I was telling you before, like thank God for social media so I can actually like stay connected with you all in this way.
Right.
Even though we don't talk all the time and like we very rarely catch up, but like I can see and I follow like all the really cool things that you all are doing and I'm just like beside myself with how proud I am of all of you because
Oh,
you're
you're
all
so
chasing those
sweet.
dreams. You're all doing it. Like you're doing what you
Yeah.
want to do. And you guys just blow me away. You blew me away back then and like you continue to blow me away today.
Thank
Um and
you.
so tell me about some of these. So you studied dance for about 10, 11 years. Was that all at Spotlight or did you start somewhere else?
I started somewhere else. I think I did 5 years, maybe somewhere else, but then the rest of my time was at
Yeah.
Spotlight.
Okay. So in your time at both places or just your during your journey and your dance education as a young person, um, let's talk about some superpowers that have kind of shown up for you along the way. You like having having an opera career is, I think there's a lot of like similarities to
Yes.
trying to be a professional dancer, right? Like you kind of go from gig to gig. You go from maybe company to company, and
Hmm.
maybe you find the one that you're like down with and that like kind of gives you a little bit more stability than others. But I imagine that it's very similar to like a dance career.
Yes.
And you're still doing it after all this time, which is like amazing. Because I'm similar to dance, it can be short lived, or there's a time limit, right? Like, I think the thing with opera is like, how is the, I'll ask this question later, but because I want you to talk about your dance
Yeah.
superpowers. I have so many questions about opera. Oh my God,
I'm
your life
here.
is so interesting. But tell me about maybe like 1 to 3 dance superpowers that have shown up for you and served you in your career as you began and like to where you are now.
Right. Well, I think the biggest thing, because it does absolutely correlate with I mean, I am a performer. It's
Right.
just like musical theater, but the music is different, and we're with a live orchestra and no microphones.
Right.
But I think what it really did is it helps me physicalize these characters more than most people who don't have dance training can do. And what I mean by that, if it's someone who's supposed to be sexy or someone who's supposed to be scared or vulnerable, there's a way to physicalize those things that people
Yeah.
can read it on stage. And I find because of dance, I'm comfortable in my body and I know how to use it to portray the certain characters without someone saying, okay, you need to lean on this hip and step with this foot. I can just do it because I spent a decade training the movement in my body. And so it makes the acting so much more fluid and so much more natural. Um, yeah, and I didn't really notice it until people pointed it out. And there'll be directors who will say, "You've had dance training."
Oh
They'll just
wow.
know. And it's not like I'm, doing a time step or anything. Like they just,
You just know how to like maybe that like if you're trying to be coy, like even
Yes,
just like the turn of a shoulder or giving
right.
like just something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, and I think it's also just being comfortable in your body on stage.
I
I
know,
mean,
and like people looking at your body.
yes, yeah, because I started that at, what, 5 years old, so I'm used to that kind
Mm.
of pressure, and it only enhances my, like my performing.
For people like for your colleagues and fellow performers amongst you, what do they have to do if they are lacking that skill? Like do they go take dance class or do they go through special training or need
Yeah,
extra help?
I mean, some do. There have been some that do go to dance to train. Sometimes it'll be more of a movement like class. So
Yeah.
it's not learning certain steps, but just, how to be comfortable in your body, really.
Yeah.
And people will spend years doing that because there are a lot of opera singers too who spend so much time working on the voice and not the performing, but you really need both. That's what makes the art
Mm.
form so beautiful. And I feel like I was lucky enough I had a jump start before even learning what acting was or how to physicalize these things just because I'd been doing it naturally for years.
Hmm. I love that. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, like I imagine too for actors who have had movement training just in any capacity, it can be super helpful. Like you're just so much more comfortable with and you're willing to kind of like go that extra route
Yeah,
to be that character because you're not afraid to physicalize it. Like
right.
you actually seek it.
Yeah.
Um, wow, yeah, I didn't even think about that for
No,
your
it's true. I mean, I owe a
role.
lot to dance that I didn't even think about it until I've gotten older and I've really reflected
Yeah.
on, what brought me to opera because no one in my family did classical music or anything, so I really found it myself. And but all of these little things and dance was a huge part of it that led
So
me to it.
I wonder, so let's say your first big audition for a role, like in an opera.
Yeah.
Did you come out and say like I have dance experience?
Well, they have a resume and I put it on there that I mean, now it's kind of hard for me to say I had 10 years of ballet when I haven't done it in 10 years, but
It's still in your body. You will be
yeah,
so
it's in my
surprised.
body. Might not be able to, jump as high.
Right.
But yeah, so the terminology, so yeah, I still remember all of that. But yeah, they know. So I have been in shows where they need some dancing, especially more period dancing,
Yeah.
waltzing, that kind of stuff. I'll usually be, front and center because I know I'll be able to do it and I pick
Yeah.
up the moves quicker.
Yeah.
Uh, and it also helps with, I guess, as a second thing, it helps me pick up staging a lot
Mm,
quicker because, in dance you had to pick it up quickly.
yeah.
And if, we watch you do 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we repeat it
Yep.
and we hold that information, and I think that has helped me to retain staging a lot easier. Like I really don't, there's a lot of people who have to sit and write it out to remember it, and really
Right.
once I do it once it's in my body remembers it, and I think that has to be from dance.
Well, and like there's so opera's so interesting, right? Because it's like it's a little bit of both. Like it's kind of like a musical,
Right.
in the sense that there are lines that are like spoken and it's a story-ish, right? But mostly it's singing. So
Yeah, like 99% of it is singing.
yeah. And so like the retaining of the staging, how you're saying, like some people have to write it down. I wonder, like, because of your dance training and the way we move to music, like we're cued by like the actual music itself or like a
Right.
lyric. And like how easy was that for you, like in comparison to maybe people that didn't have that dance training background?
I think it made a huge difference, actually. I mean, of course, I mean, everyone has different backgrounds, and there are quite a few opera singers who did dance.
Hmm.
I don't know if there's a ballet opera, train that people get on, but or something.
Ooh,
But yeah, I do notice a difference,
okay.
actually. And I think the people who have directed me or taught me through school have noticed too.
Yeah, that's really cool. So like being able to retain things like quickly, I mean, and that's a huge thing about operas too, is like you actually don't and this is I think the correlation with like a dance career, you actually don't have a lot of time from rehearsal
No.
to the start of your like when you open, like opening night. And like what's an average, what does that look like on average for you?
Right. So I guess I'll just go based off the last opera I did. So it was about 3 hours long.
Okay.
Dancing, probably a solid hour 45 of it. So it's a big
Wow.
chunk.
Yeah.
Um, we had 2 weeks of staging rehearsals. And it was
Okay.
a brand new production, so everyone's doing new things. And then you have 2 weeks in the theater,
Right.
to test with the set and
Hmm.
run it with the orchestra. So it's about 4 weeks to put on a show,
Yeah.
which for a 3 hour opera, and also, opera is so technically challenging to do
Yeah.
vocally that, you have to get it into your body, just like dancing, you have to practice it over and over again. But sometimes we aren't given the opportunity to. So you have to just be ready to
Right.
do it when they need you to.
You do a lot of like at least studying on your own, I imagine.
Yes.
Like you
Yeah, a
have
lot.
to learn the music
Oh,
and
yeah, that
do
has to
all
be
that
learned
stuff.
before you get there. Day one,
Wow.
you
Yeah.
are memorized, ready to jump into the staging of
Wow.
it.
Okay. So like you have to know the music before you can even get into the choreography. And I guess that's the big difference between like dance is like you show up and you don't know anything and you're like, okay, mold me and tell me the show. And you have, 2 months or a month to learn it. But here you have to do this extra step even before you
Oh
get
yeah.
there.
Yeah, like I'll train and take coachings, and people will mentor me for almost, sometimes depending on the role, like over a year
Ooh.
before I do it.
Wow, that's insane. I mean, like, it's not insane, but like it's kind of like that iceberg theory. Like you only see this little thing
Yes.
and like all this under stuff like is actually there that you're doing on the back end, that nobody else gets to see. But like to get to that stage, it took all of this extra time and effort on your part
Yeah.
to get there.
Yeah,
Wow.
there was one time actually with my friend, I was doing this one woman opera at school called Le Voix Humain. Um, and we were trying to keep track of all the hours. We talked about it in practice, but after 100 hours, which is really in the beginning, I stopped counting. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's hundreds, because I was curious of how much work we actually put in before. I mean, it's just like dance. We would spend 6 months to do our 3-minute dance routine for
Yeah.
the recital.
Yep.
I mean, spend so much time for that one moment.
Yeah. It's so fleeting too. I
Yes.
mean, I I was having this like thought process. We just finished hosting the track and field Olympic trials here in Eugene, and
Wow.
at the U of O where I work. And we use our track facility. It's beautiful. It's amazing. But it's kind of the same thing. Like it comes down to 60 seconds for these
Right.
athletes. Like it is 60 seconds or bust. And that is either their ticket to the Olympics or not. And they have to wait another 3 to 4 years before
Right.
maybe they can do it again if they want to, or if they feel like they are in a place in their bodies and their age like that they could do that, because that also has a time limit as well from what I understand. So like I was having this thought, like I'm just like what we do is so fleeting, like it's
But
like it
that's also what makes it so amazing that
they're
it's this
so
live thing.
weird.
It's a one and done, beautiful, art we get to create.
It's
So,
true. We
yeah.
literally, and I think a past friend and colleague of mine, she said this in a previous episode from a different season. She's like, we literally as artists like make something out of nothing and then it
Yes.
evaporates like when we do it.
Right.
So just that alone is what's so amazing about this art form and why we do this art form and how we do this art form.
Totally.
Yeah. What else? What other dance superpowers have shown up for you?
Oh my gosh. Well, let me see. I wrote three down. I was a
Okay.
good student. Um,
You are, yeah.
let's see.
You understood the assignment.
Um, oh, you know what? I think something too. I mean, it all kind of goes back to just being comfortable in my body, but I'm able to physicalize and think on my feet and improvise a lot
Mm,
easier than
mm-hmm,
I think some other people can. I mean, I started my career as being an understudy and jumping into things where I had
mm-hmm.
zero rehearsal, and you have to just go on stage and sing a lead role, and you have to, have an intimate relationship with someone, or or be really angry and do this whole arc in this world that you haven't been a part of
Right.
until that moment. And I think because I'm comfortable in my body and my body knows how to portray these characters and how
Mm-hmm.
to walk and how to move, that it just makes it easier. And it really, I mean, that made everything for my career. I counted it up the other day. I think I jumped in, 6 or 7 times into
Wow.
shows. And
God.
sometimes it's, I haven't done it in 8 months, and I'll get a call and say, hey, you still remember it? Can you do it tomorrow? And so I have to spend the time looking at the music. So my body has to be
Yeah.
soft, and I have to be confident in that my body will portray the character that I need to be. And it comes so naturally.
It's
And I just don't have to think about it. And it's not
yeah.
specific dance, but it's just knowing how to move my body and be comfortable.
I think
Really, yeah.
what you're touching on something that I think Serena and Jenna kind of uncovered in their episode. Like the improvising is like the first layer, but this you're talking about this like level of trust. That's the
Yeah.
second layer.
Yes.
Like trust you like through dance training, you like have learned to trust your body without even thinking twice about it. Like you're like, I have to focus on this, and I know my body's going to show up for me and perform in a way where I don't have to practice that necessarily. It's just
Yes.
going to do it based off of like how I'm interpreting this vocal arrangement or, whatever words I'm saying. Like I trust full-heartedly that my body is going to do what it's supposed to do. And I think that's really unique about dance
Yes.
training too.
Oh yeah. And I mean, in opera, it is a full body sport, truthfully. I
Yeah.
mean, singing opera, you sing with 60 plus musicians in the orchestra pit, and we have no microphones. I mean, it is just the raw human voice, and it takes a lot of energy and focus, and it takes your whole body to do it. So to have that grounding in my body really jump started a lot of things for me. And on top of that, when you're in a show, that's just singing. I mean, in the show, then you have to act on top of this, really difficult thing, an amazing thing, but difficult thing that I do and we do.
I know.
Um,
Singing is really hard. And I think singing opera is especially hard because of the range. And like, I know everybody kind of has these roles, or you get into these roles that are meant for your voice, right?
yes, yeah, and
I'm
it
not going to,
changes. Your voice keeps changing. I mean, it doesn't fully, your vocal cords are like the size of your thumbnail.
Okay.
So small that that little thing can, project into a 3,000 seat house without a
Yeah.
microphone. And it doesn't develop fully until your mid 30s. And then, hormones and everything changes. So your voice is always changing. I mean, it's just like dance,
Yeah.
doing a certain move will just change as you
Yeah.
get older. I mean, the
Yes.
principle of it stays the same, but how we adjust our bodies to do it will
Yeah.
change.
I was trying like to do just some simple plie, like bar plies, like the other day, and I was like, my turnout is not turnout anymore. Like that doesn't exist anymore just because of like the way my body has changed and the things that I've done over time that are like not dance, like
Yes.
Olympic style weightlifting and like other things that I've gotten into over time. Like it's changed the way that my body feels and moves. And so your vocal cords and your voice is the same way. You're saying that it's a full body workout. Like, what do you do to prep for a show? Like, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the show. I mean, I do like I've gone through different types of working out. Like you said, I used to be a big weightlifter, but now I'm kind of into my Pilates era of
Yeah.
life. So I like that, and it's good for breathing, and it's good for core strength without it being too tight.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so you have to have the muscle, but it has to be flexible enough that
Hmm.
you can still have movement in the voice and in the body. So it is that always that hard balance. But I mean, it's you know kind of that my body's a temple. I have to take care of it,
That's right.
to do
Yeah.
the best I can do, and especially now where this is my livelihood, that I
Yeah.
need to focus on
Like
that.
you have to. Yeah,
Yeah,
it is a priority. Like your
yeah,
voice and your body, all
yes,
one
and
thing.
it's all connected. I mean. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So,
Wow,
yeah.
that's awesome. Are there any other superpowers that come to mind that have like really helped you in your opera career?
Hmm. Well, I mean, I have had to dance too
Yeah.
in shows. I mean, not often, maybe like 5 shows in, the 30 I've probably done recently. Um, but it does help so that I don't look like an idiot, typically.
Right. You're like, no, I
I'm
can
like,
totally
oh,
do
I've
this.
done harder than this. It'll be
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
And
I spent 11 years,
right, I was like, I
like
hope
an
I can do
idiot, so I
it.
don't do that now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, although I don't, I know I can't do like a split anymore, but the training and everything, it's still key. So for waltzing, or sometimes operas are set in contemporary, it's contemporary period. So the dance styles will change, and that I at least have a basis of, ballet to hip hop to
Yeah.
jazz to all of that, that I can, they say, "Oh, this is the style." And I say, "Okay, let me show you." And I can physicalize it on top of the musical training I've had.
Yeah.
Vocal.
That's amazing. I love this. Okay. Anything else? I feel like that this is all like wonderful things and just like the other students that have done episodes so far, like you're kind of peeling back these like very general things, but like
Yeah,
what you're saying is like really underneath that, and I love that we're bringing that out here.
totally. I mean, I guess, and I just thought of this one too, is the discipline that dance
Yeah.
teaches.
That's come up. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, because I mean, I think of, being 6 years old and doing ballet, and I didn't always love it. And
Mhm.
then but I appreciated that discipline the
Yeah.
older I got. And it
Yeah.
is huge because what I do, you need discipline. I work on multiple operas a year. I have to be able to sit and learn this music in different languages. I have to French, German, Italian, Russian, Spanish, all these different things. I have to study them constantly,
Yeah.
and you have to be disciplined. I mean, I can't just spend 5 minutes a day and call it quits. Like, I had to be able to spend hours on this.
Yeah.
And I think the training of, multiple hours a week from a young age on,
Yeah.
and then you spend so much time working on, one move, or you spend so much time working on one dance, that it teaches you the discipline and how important it is to fine tune these things, which makes, a great performance better and
Yeah.
continues on.
That like rinse and repeat. Like just rinse and
Yeah,
repeat. Just keep going.
right.
Keep being consistent. Like just
Yeah,
do the thing. Like show up and do
yeah,
the thing. Even if you
Yes.
don't want to do it, just like show up and do it because it adds up. All the little
Yeah.
things add up.
Yeah, and like this is my job. So there are some days where I don't want to sing. I'm tired or something happens in my life. But I have the discipline enough to know that I can get through this.
Yeah, you just have
This
to
is fine
push
and
it.
I can do it.
You're like, let's
And there are
try.
others days that I absolutely love it and I'm so happy. And that's 99% of the time.
Yeah.
So, but you always need the discipline to get through it and the training too. And then
Mhm.
it's just like dance where, I was in college for 8 years for opera.
Yeah,
A long time. Could have been a doctor.
it's
You know,
true.
and I
And
spent all that time studying to now finally in the last few years have the career that I trained for since I was a teenager.
yeah. Oh, it's so awesome. Like so fulfilling, right?
Yes,
Like
it is. Yes, it is. I
it
can't
was
imagine
all worth
anything
it.
else.
So worth it. It's
Yeah.
so worth it. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you for taking the time to meet with me and talk about these things. And gosh, I've heard you sing before and you are magnificent. And I'm so thrilled that you have such a like booming career and sky's the limit still. More to come. And
Yes,
I
yes,
hope I
that's
can
the
see you
goal.
perform one day. I don't know if I'll be anywhere
Yes.
near a performance area, but I'm going to keep my eye on you.
Yeah,
And
and I'll of course let you know. I'm hoping
yes,
to make it
please
out near
do.
you soon.
But
So
thank you again for joining me. And I'm so happy for you. I'm so proud of you.
thank
And, I appreciated you then. I appreciate you now. And I just can't wait to see what more you've got in store for your life.
you. That means the world. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us, listeners. Until next time, enjoy this big Bordeaux and we'll see you next time. Cheers.